Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. When God speaks to you, he doesn't always use a loudspeaker. Most of the time, it's a whisper in your spirit that tells you, is the way. The challenge is not whether God is speaking. The challenge is whether you are tuned in. Because this world, let me tell you, is noisy. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's trying to tell you who to be, where to go, what to do. Social media, television, even the people you surround yourself with, there's always a voice. But not every voice deserves your attention. And if you're not careful, you'll start following the loudest voice instead of the right voice. You've got to learn to recognize the difference. See, when I was younger, I didn't know what God had in store for me. I had dreams, sure, but dreams can be cloudy if you don't have clarity. And clarity only comes when you get quiet enough to hear Him. That's the problem. We don't like quiet. We don't like stillness. We're addicted to noise because noise makes us feel like we're alive, like something's happening. But sometimes the greatest move of God is in the silence. And if you can't get comfortable with silence, you'll miss what He's trying to tell you. Recognizing God's voice is about relationship. You can't recognize a voice you never spend time with. Imagine a crowded room filled with hundreds of conversations. If your mother called your name, you'd recognize her voice instantly. Why? Because you've spent your life listening to it. You know the tone, the cadence, the way she says your name. It's familiar. That's how it has to be with God. The more you walk with Him, the more you talk with Him, the more you read His word, the more familiar His voice becomes. So when He calls you, you don't hesitate. You know it's Him. But too often, we let other voices become louder than God's. Fear has a voice. Doubt has a voice. Temptation has a voice. And if you don't train your spirit, you'll confuse those voices with God's will. That's why so many people are living beneath their purpose. They followed the voice of fear instead of the voice of faith. They listened to the voice of doubt instead of the voice of destiny. Don't let that be you. God's calling doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it sounds like a challenge. Sometimes it sounds like a step out. Sometimes it sounds like Eve behind what's familiar. Nah. And if you've got too much noise around you, you'll miss it. Let me be real with you. Some of the voices you have to silence are people you love. Friends, family, even mentors. They mean well, but they don't always know what God has spoken over your life. They don't see the vision He gave you. They can't hear the whisper He placed in your heart. So if you're waiting for everybody to agree with God's calling on your life, you'll be waiting forever. There comes a time when you've got to say, I respect your opinion, but I've got to follow His direction. Because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you don't answer to them. You answer to Him. And here's something else. Recognizing God's voice takes faith, because God will rarely give you the whole picture. He'll give you a word, a step, a piece of the puzzle. And then He says, trust me. That's the test. Can you obey when you don't see the whole plan? Can you step out when all you've got is a whisper? See, the world wants certainty, but faith doesn't live in certainty. Faith lives in obedience. Faith says, oh Lord, I don't see it all, but I trust that if you said it, it's already done. That's how you walk in your calling. Not by sight, not by comfort, but by faith in the one who called you. I've seen people chase after opportunities that looked good but weren't God. Just because it shines doesn't mean it's meant for you. That's why you need discernment. That's why you need His voice. Because sometimes the enemy won't try to stop you with failure. He'll try to stop you with distraction. He'll offer you something that looks close to your purpose but isn't quite it. And if you're not tuned in, you'll settle for almost instead of a destiny. But when you know God's voice, you don't settle. You wait, you trust, you follow His lead. And let me tell you, when you do, there's peace. That's one of the ways you know it's God. His voice brings peace, even in the middle of a storm. You might be stepping into something scary, but deep down, there's a calm assurance. That's not you. That's Him. That's His confirmation. But when it's not Him, you'll feel restless. You'll feel uneasy. Don't ignore that. That's the Spirit telling you, this isn't it. So the question is, what voices have you been listening to? And more importantly, are those voices leading you closer to your purpose or pulling you away from it? Because the moment you learn to silence the noise, the moment you train your spirit to recognize His whisper, that's when you start walking in alignment with your calling. And when you're aligned with God, no noise in the world can drown out what He's destined for you. Fear is a liar. It dresses itself up like truth, but it's not truth, it's limitation. Fear whispers in your ear, you're not good enough, you're not ready, you don't have what it takes. And the sad thing is, too many of us accept that lie as fact. We live smaller than God intended because we let fear dictate the size of our steps. We let insecurity become the chain that holds us back from the life we were called to live. But hear me on this, God did not design you to live bound. He designed you to live free. When God calls you, He already knows your weaknesses. He already knows your insecurities, and He still calls you. That should tell you something. That means the calling on your life is not based on your strength. It's based on His. It means you don't have to have it all together to step into your purpose. You just have to be willing. But fear will keep you questioning yourself, second guessing your worth, doubting your ability. That's the trap. And if you don't break free, you'll spend your life stuck in a what if instead of stepping into what's next. I've seen it. Talented people, brilliant people, anointed people never walk in their calling because they were waiting to feel ready. Let me tell you something, you're never going to feel completely ready. That's the truth. Purpose doesn't come with a comfort guarantee. Destiny doesn't come with an instruction manual that makes everything crystal clear. Fear will always show up at the doorway of opportunity, but it's your decision whether to let it in. And the only way to break free is to stop letting fear drive the car. Fear can ride in the back seat, but it cannot take the wheel. Insecurity works the same way. Insecurity says, look at them. They're smarter, stronger, more qualified. It compares you to everyone else until you're paralyzed. But the thing about insecurity is this, it blinds you to what God has placed in you. You keep measuring yourself against their gift, and you miss your own. You keep looking at their lane, and you lose sight of yours. You've got to understand, your calling is unique. God didn't make a mistake when He created you. He didn't overlook you. He didn't give you leftovers. He put something in you that only you can carry. And the moment you stop comparing, the moment you stop letting insecurity define your value, you'll see that what He gave you is more than enough for what He's called you to do. Breaking free doesn't mean fear and insecurity vanish. No, they might still show up, but it means they don't control you anymore. It means when fear says, don't take that step, you take it anyway. When insecurity says, you're not enough, you remind yourself, God is more than enough through me. That's how you break the chain, by moving forward in spite of it. Boldness is not the absence of fear. Boldness is obedience in the presence of fear. Let me tell you something personal. There were moments in my life when fear could have stopped me. I could have said, this is too big, too risky, too much. And I won't lie, there were nights I wrestled with insecurity. But every time I remembered this truth, if God brought me to it, He'll bring me through it. That's not just a nice phrase, it's a promise. And if you hold on to that, you'll find the strength to break every chain. See, when you let fear run your life, you live small. But when you break free, you step into possibility. When you let insecurity silence you, the world misses out on the gift God placed inside you. But when you walk free, you become a light for somebody else. Do you realize that? Somebody's breakthrough is tied to your obedience. Somebody's healing, somebody's inspiration, somebody's faith is waiting on you to break free. That's why the enemy wants you bound. Because if you never step up, if you never speak out, if you never walk in purpose, then the people connected to your calling never get what they need. But the moment you decide no more, that's the moment everything changes. When you declare, I may feel fear, but I will not live in fear. I may feel insecure, but I will not let insecurity dictate my destiny. You unlock something powerful. You unlock courage. You unlock courage. You unlock faith. And suddenly the same chains that held you down become the testimony that lifts you up. You get to say, yes, I battled fear. Yes, I fought insecurity. But God broke the chains and I walked into freedom. And freedom, once you taste it, you never want to go back. That's the life God wants for you. Not bound, not limited, not held hostage by fear, but free, free to live, free to serve, free to walk in the fullness of your calling. All you've got to do is break the chain. And breaking the chain starts with a decision to trust Him more than you trust your fear, to believe Him more than you believe your insecurity. When you do that, nothing, no lie, no doubt, no chain can hold you back from what He's called you to do. Your calling is not just about you. It's bigger than you, bigger than your comfort, bigger than your plans. That's the first thing you've got to realize. See, when God calls you, it's not just to elevate your life, it's to impact other lives. It's to change families, communities, maybe even generations. And that's why the enemy works so hard to keep you small, to keep you distracted, to keep you afraid. Because if you never step into your calling, the people who were supposed to be blessed through your obedience may never receive what they were meant to receive. That's the weight of destiny. It's not a selfish thing, it's a service thing. Your gift is not for you to hoard, your talent is not for you to hide. What God has placed in you was never meant to sit on a shelf. It was meant to pour out. It was meant to feed the hungry, inspire the weary, lift up the broken, guide the lost to fall. That's why you can't measure your calling by how comfortable it makes you. Your calling will stretch you. It will pull you out of yourself because it's designed to reach beyond yourself. Think about it. Moses wasn't called just so he could feel important. He was called to lead a nation out of David wasn't anointed just to sing songs. He was called to be king, to bring order and victory to a people who needed it. Esther wasn't placed in the palace just to wear a crown. She was there to save her people from destruction. Every true calling is connected to a cause greater than the person carrying it. And the same is true for you. But here's where the struggle comes in. We like to make it about us. We say, I'm not ready. I'm not qualified. I'm not enough. But the truth is, it was never about you being enough. It was about you being willing. Because when you obey, God supplies the rest. When you step forward, He equips you. When you stop making it about your limitations and start making it about His power, that's when things shift. That's when you realize this is not about me feeling comfortable. This is about me being obedient so somebody else can see God through my life. You never know who's waiting on your yes. You never know who's sitting in darkness waiting for the light God put in you. And here's the thing, your story, your struggles, your victories, they're not just for you. They're testimonies designed to open doors for somebody else. You think that pain you went through was just about your survival. No, it was also about your assignment because somebody else is going to need to hear how you came through. Somebody else is going to need to know it's possible. That's why you can't quit. That's why you can't shrink back. Your calling is bigger than your comfort zone. Now, let's be real. Sometimes carrying that weight feels overwhelming. You think, oh Lord, why me? Why did you choose me for this? And God's answer is simple, because I put something in you that's necessary. You might not see it, but He sees it. You might not feel ready, but He knows what's in you. And if He placed the calling, He'll place the strength to carry it. Don't confuse difficulty with disqualification. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you're not called. In fact, the size of the struggle usually points to the size of the impact. You see, when you start to understand your calling is bigger than you, your perspective changes. You stop asking, oh, what do I get out of this? And you start asking, who is supposed to be blessed because of this? That's maturity. That's purpose. That's how you begin to walk in destiny instead of just chasing success, because success is about what you gain. Purpose is about what you give. Success fades, purpose lasts. And don't miss this. When you walk in your calling, the fulfillment you feel is not because of what you receive. The peace doesn't come from recognition. It comes from knowing you're in alignment with what God created you to do. That's the kind of satisfaction the world can't give you. And that's the kind of satisfaction the world can't take away. So you've got to ask yourself tonight, am I living for me or am I living for the calling on my life? Because if it's just about you, you'll quit when it gets tough. But if it's about the bigger picture, if it's about the lives connected to your obedience, then you'll keep going. You'll push past the pain. You'll endure the storm because you'll realize this isn't just my fight, it's my assignment. And when God assigns you, He anoints you. He gives you what you need to see it through. That's why you can't afford to stay small. You can't afford to let fear win. You can't afford to let insecurity keep you quiet. Too much is riding on your obedience. Too many lives are connected to your calling. And when you finally step into it, when you finally accept that it's bigger than you, you'll discover a freedom and a fulfillment you never imagined. Because you'll realize you weren't just made to exist, you were made to impact. You were made to change something. You were made to carry something that will outlive you. And that right there is purpose. Vision without discipline is just a dream. And dreams, if you don't put in the work, will stay stuck in your imagination. God may give you a vision of your calling. He may whisper to you about the purpose He's designed for your life, but make no mistake. Gee, vision alone won't carry you there. It takes discipline. Discipline is the bridge between what you see in your spirit and what you hold in your hands. Without discipline, you'll keep circling around potential but never stepping into fulfillment. Now, discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't always feel good. It's not about hype, it's about habit. Discipline is saying yes when everything in you wants to say a no. Discipline is waking up when you'd rather sleep. Discipline is studying when you'd rather scroll. Discipline is practicing when nobody's clapping, preparing when nobody's watching, staying focused when everything around you is screaming for distraction. See, people love vision, but they don't always love discipline. And that's why some never cross the bridge. They see it, they believe it, but they don't live it because they're not willing to walk that bridge step by step. When you think about the greats, the leaders, the artists, the athletes, the people who walked boldly in their purpose, it wasn't just talent that carried them. Talent might get you noticed, but discipline keeps you consistent. Discipline builds the kind of character that sustains the calling. You can have all the gifting in the world, but if you don't have the discipline to nurture it, protect it, and grow it, you'll never see it reach its full potential. God doesn't just call you to dream, He calls you to prepare. And preparation requires discipline. It means training your mind, training your body, training your spirit to handle what you've been asking for. You pray for doors to open, but when they do, will you be ready to walk through them? You pray for opportunities, but when they come, will you have the character to keep them? That's where discipline comes in. It's the quiet work behind the scenes that equips you for the stage. It's the unseen grind that prepares you for the seen blessing. Discipline also means sacrifice. You can't say yes to everything and still expect to walk fully in your purpose. Sometimes you've got to say a no to good things so you can say yes to the right thing. Sometimes you've got to walk away from comfort so you can grow into calling. Discipline is the daily decision to align your actions with your assignment. And let me tell you, it's not easy. It's not supposed to be, but it's worth it. Here's the truth. Purpose without discipline becomes wasted potential. That's why so many people stay stuck in cycles of frustration. They see where they want to be. They feel what God has called them to, but they don't build the habits that take them there. And then they blame God for not moving, when in reality, He's been waiting for them to move. He gave you the vision. He gave you the talent. He gave you the talent. But He's not going to do your push-ups for you. He's not going to study for you. He's not going to put the phone down for you. That's on you. Discipline is your responsibility. But let me give you the good news. Discipline is not punishment. It's preparation. Discipline is not about restricting your life. It's about releasing your potential. Every time you choose discipline, you're building strength. Every time you say a no to distraction, you're saying yes to destiny. And over time, that consistency pays off. You'll look back and realize what I prayed for, I prepared for. What I believed for, I worked for. And now I'm living it. And understand this, discipline doesn't just develop your gift, it develops you. It shapes your character, humbles your ego, strengthens your resolve. Because God isn't just interested in blessing what you do, He's interested in shaping who you are. That's why He uses discipline, not just to prepare you for the promise, but to make sure you can carry the promise without losing yourself in it. You might be in a season right now where it feels like nobody sees the work you're putting in. Nobody's clapping, nobody's cheering, nobody's affirming, and you're tempted to slack off, to cut corners, to say, oh, what's the point? But hear me, every ounce of discipline matters. Every sacrifice, every late night, every early morning, every small choice to stay focused. It all adds up. And one day, when the doors open, when the opportunity comes, when the vision becomes reality, you'll realize it wasn't wasted. Discipline carried you across the bridge into love. So don't despise the process. Don't resist the routine. Embrace it, because discipline is the evidence that you believe in your calling enough to work for it. Vision will inspire you, but discipline will transform you. And when you put the two together, nothing can stop you from walking in the fullness of what God has called you to do. Who you walk with will determine how far you go. You can't expect to walk into your calling while surrounding yourself with people who have no interest in theirs. Purpose is contagious, but so is distraction. And if you're not careful, you'll inherit the mindset, the habits, the limitations of the people you let closest to you. That's why you've got to be intentional about your circle. Because the truth is, everybody can't go with you. When God calls you, He separates you. He calls you out from the crowd, not to isolate you, but to elevate you. And part of that elevation requires that you examine your relationships. Ask yourself, are the people around me pushing me toward my purpose or pulling me away from it? Do they fuel my fire or do they drain it? Do they challenge me to grow or do they keep me stuck in comfort? See, it's easy to stay in circles where everybody's doing the same thing, thinking the same way, living at the same level. But if you want to step into something greater, you've got to surround yourself with people who think higher, believe bigger, and walk stronger. Look back through history. Look at the people who fulfilled their calling. They didn't do it alone. Even Jesus had disciples. David had mighty men. Paul had Timothy. Greatness may begin in solitude, but it's sustained in community. And not just any community, purpose-driven community. Purpose-driven community. The kind of people who pray with you when you're weak, who hold you accountable when you're slipping, who remind you of your assignment when you forget why you started. The kind of people who don't just celebrate your comfort, but call out your potential. The danger is, some of us are trying to carry our calling while still entertaining circles that are comfortable with mediocrity. And mediocrity will always resent purpose. The moment you decide to step higher, there will be people who say, "You've changed." But the truth is, you're supposed to change. Growth demands change. Purpose requires it. And if your relationships can't handle your growth, then maybe those relationships were only meant for a season, not a lifetime. Now, don't get me wrong. This doesn't mean you cut everybody off cold. It means you learn to place people where they belong. Not everyone should have access to your inner circle. Some people are acquaintances, some are associates, few are confidants. You've got to learn the difference. You've got to learn the difference. If you keep giving your inner circle to people who don't carry purpose, don't be surprised when you feel drained, distracted, or delayed. Guard your circle because your circle guards your destiny. And let's be real, sometimes the hardest part of walking in purpose is outgrowing people you love. You care about them, you've got history with them, but history doesn't equal destiny. You can love somebody deeply and still recognize that they're not aligned with where God is taking you. And if you don't learn to make peace with that, you'll hold yourself back trying to pull people who aren't ready to move. You can't carry everybody into your calling. Some people have to stay behind so you can move forward. But here's the beautiful part. When you surround yourself with purpose-driven people, you'll find strength you didn't know you had. You'll find encouragement when you're tired, wisdom when you're confused, faith when you're wavering. Iron sharpens iron. And when you put yourself in an environment where people sharpen you, you can't help but grow sharper yourself. That's the power of alignment. That's the power of community. I've seen this in my own life. When I align with people who are focused, disciplined, and walking in purpose, it elevates me. It makes me better. Their vision fuels my vision. Their faith stirs my faith. Their discipline challenges my own. And suddenly you realize that you're not just walking alone. You're walking in an atmosphere of purpose that pushes everybody higher. That's the kind of environment you want to live in. That's the kind of circle you want to keep. So ask yourself, who's in my circle? And do they reflect the level of purpose I'm striving for or the level of comfort I'm trying to escape? If your circle doesn't inspire you, stretch you, or challenge you, then it's not a circle, it's a cage. And you can't step into your calling if you're locked in the wrong cage. But when you find the right people, people who carry vision, faith, and integrity, you'll discover that your calling becomes clearer, your path becomes stronger, and your journey becomes lighter. Because at the end of the day, purpose is too heavy to carry alone. You need people around you who understand the weight, who share the burden, who remind you that you're not crazy for believing in something bigger. And when you've got those people, purpose-driven people, you'll find yourself walking bolder, standing taller, and reaching further, Because you'll know you're not just walking for yourself, you're walking with others who believe in the same higher call. And that makes all the difference. Faith will always ask you to do what comfort never will. Comfort says, stay where you are. Don't take the risk. Don't step out. Don't rock the boat, but faith says a step into the unknown. Trust what you cannot see. Believe for what hasn't happened yet, and if you're serious about walking in your calling, you've got to make a decision. Will you choose faith or will you choose comfort? Because you can't have both. The truth is, comfort feels safe. It feels familiar. It feels easy. And that's why so many people never reach their destiny. They settle for safe. They build a life around what's familiar, even if it's unfulfilling. But hear me, your calling will rarely be comfortable. God is not interested in keeping you cozy. He's interested in growing you. And growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. Growth happens when you're stretched and you're challenged, when you're placed in situations that require more faith than you think you have. Think about Abraham. God told him, leave your country, your people, your father's household, and go to a land I will show you. Notice God didn't hand him a map. He didn't give him the full plan. He just said, a go. That's faith. That's discomfort. That's the tension of walking in purpose. You don't always see the destination, but you trust the direction. And that trust is what separates those who live in purpose from those who live in comfort. I'll tell you something, comfort is a silent killer. So it doesn't destroy you overnight, it just slowly keeps you stuck. It whispers, why push harder? Why take the risk? Why step out when you can stay right here? And before you know it, years pass and you're still in the same place, still talking about what you could have been, what you should have done, what you almost accomplished. Comfort breeds regret. Faith breeds legacy. And faith isn't just about believing, it's about moving. It's about moving. The Bible says faith without works is dead. That means if you believe God called you, you've got to step like he called you. You've got to live like it's already done, even when you don't see it yet. Faith is walking to the edge of the water before it parts. Faith is building the ark before it rains. Faith is standing in front of giants with nothing but a sling and a stone. That kind of faith doesn't live in comfort. That kind of faith requires courage. Now, let's be honest. Walking by faith isn't easy. It will make you uncomfortable. It will stretch you beyond your own ability. That's the point. Because if you could do it on your own, it wouldn't require God. And God wants you dependent on him, not just on your own strength. He wants you in places where you have to pray, where you have to trust, where you have to lean on his word, because nothing else makes sense. That's where miracles happen. That's where transformation happens. I've seen it too many times. People who stepped out in faith, even when it didn't make sense, and God showed up in ways they could never imagine. They took the risk. They left the comfort. And on the other side of that leap was blessing, was breakthrough, was purpose fulfilled. But they never would have seen it if they stayed where it was safe. And let me say this, faith over comfort doesn't just impact you, it impacts everyone connected to you. When you step out in faith, you inspire others to do the same. Your obedience becomes their courage. Your risk becomes their testimony. But when you choose comfort, you don't just limit yourself, you limit the people who needed your example. That's why choosing faith is never just personal. Yet is never just personal. It's generational. Comfort will cost you your calling. Faith will cost you your comfort. Which one are you willing to lose? Because you can't walk in both. And the thing about comfort is it fades anyway. The job, the routine, the lifestyle that feels safe today will one day feel suffocating if it's not aligned with your purpose. But faith, that endures. Faith creates something that lasts beyond you. So maybe right now, God is calling you to do something that doesn't make sense. Maybe he's asking you to step out, to trust him, to leave behind what feels familiar. And maybe everything in you is fighting it because it's uncomfortable. But remember this, comfort never produces greatness. Faith does. Comfort never changes lives. Faith does. Comfort never fulfills purpose. Faith does. The question is, are you willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of your destiny? Are you willing to trust God more than you trust your own safety net? Because if you are, then you'll see what only faith can unlock. You'll step into doors you couldn't open on your own. You'll walk into opportunities you never imagined, and you'll discover that what felt uncomfortable at first was actually the path to everything you were created for. Failure is not the end, it's the lesson. Too many people quit the moment they stumble. They take a setback as a sign they're not called. They take rejection as proof they're not worthy. They take a closed door as God's final answer. But hear me clearly, failure is not final. It's preparation. Every misstep, every mistake, every time you fell flat on your face, it wasn't wasted. It was shaping you, teaching you, preparing you for what's ahead. See, the world has trained us to be afraid of failure. From childhood, you're told failure is embarrassing, failure is shameful, failure means you're not good enough. But that's a lie. Failure is not evidence that you can't succeed. Failure is evidence that you tried. It's evidence that you had the courage to step out when others stayed comfortable. And sometimes the only way to learn what works is to go through what doesn't. You don't learn strength in success. You learn it in struggle. You don't develop resilience in victory. You develop it in defeat. Think about the greatest leaders, inventors, innovators, world changers. They didn't arrive at success without failing first. Michael Jordan said he missed thousands of shots, lost hundreds of games, and that's exactly why he succeeded. Thomas Edison said he didn't fail 1,000 times. He just found 1,000 ways that didn't work. And every single one of us, if we're honest, has moments we'd rather erase. But those moments, as painful as they were, shaped us. They gave us wisdom, perspective, and endurance that success alone could never teach. Failure humbles you. It strips away arrogance. It teaches you how to depend on God instead of your own ability. Because when you failed, you realize you're not in control. You realize you need Him. And that realization, that humility, that surrender, that's preparation. Because God can't elevate someone who thinks they don't need Him. But He can use the one who's been broken, the one who's been humbled, the one who knows that every step forward is by His grace. I'll never forget, some of the most powerful testimonies I've heard didn't come from people who had it easy. They came from people who fell hard, failed big, and still got back up. And when they tell their story, it hits different because you can see the scars, you can hear the resilience, you can feel the faith it took to keep going. That's the beauty of failure. It gives weight to your testimony. It gives credibility to your calling. People don't just need to hear about your success. They need to know you struggled and survived. That's what gives them hope. But here's the danger. You can't camp in failure. You can't stay stuck in regret, replaying the moment you fell short. Too many people turn a chapter into the whole story. They failed once, so they stopped trying. They got rejected once, so they stopped dreaming. They got hurt once, so they stopped loving. But failure only wins if you quit. If you keep going, failure becomes a stepping stone, not a tombstone, not a tombstone. And let me remind you, sometimes what you call failure is actually protection. Sometimes the door that closed wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Sometimes the opportunity that fell through wasn't the end, it was God saving you from something that would have destroyed you. That's why you can't judge your journey by a single moment. You've got to trust that God sees the bigger picture. What feels like a failure today may turn out to be the exact thing that prepared you for tomorrow. I've seen it in my own life. There were auditions I didn't get, roles I didn't land, opportunities that slipped through my fingers. At the time, it felt like failure. But looking back, I realized those very moments were preparing me for something greater. They built my perseverance. They sharpened my hunger. They made me better. And when the right doors opened, I was ready because of what I learned in the seasons of rejection. So if you're in a season where it feels like failure is all around you, don't give up. Don't misinterpret the process. You're not disqualified. You're being developed. You're not done. You're not done. You're being prepared. Every failure is equipping you with wisdom, resilience, and strength you'll need to carry your calling. And when the moment comes, when the vision you've been praying for finally manifests, you'll be able to stand in it with confidence because you know what it took to get there. Failure is not your enemy, it's your teacher. It's not your grave, it's your ground. The ground where God grows you, shapes you, and builds you into who He created you to be. And when you embrace it as preparation, you'll stop fearing it. You'll stop running from it. And instead, you'll use it. Because the truth is, failure doesn't end your story. It refines it, it makes it stronger, it makes it real. And it makes it a testimony that not only carries you, but inspires everyone who sees you rise again. Obedience takes courage. It's one thing to hear God's call, it's another to step into it when you can't see the whole path. Most of us want clarity before commitment. We want the blueprint, the guarantee, the promise that everything will work out before we take the first step. But that's not how God works. He doesn't hand you the finished map. He gives you one step at a time, and then He watches to see if you trust Him enough to move. Walking in obedience means saying yes before you know how it's going to turn out. The truth is, obedience doesn't always make sense. Sometimes God will ask you to do something that looks foolish to the world, that doesn't line up with logic, that makes people question your judgment. And that's exactly where boldness comes in, because if you're waiting for everyone to understand your obedience, you'll never move. Some people will laugh, some people will criticize, some people will walk away. But if you're going to fulfill your calling, you've got to decide whose approval matters more, theirs or God's. Obedience isn't just about following rules, it's about alignment. It's aligning your steps with His will, your plans with His purpose, your timing with His timing. And when you do, doors open that you could never have opened on your own. Opportunities appear that you couldn't have created. Strength shows up that you didn't know you had. That's the reward of obedience. You may not understand it in the moment, but obedience positions you for blessing. Look at the stories in Scripture. Abraham was told to leave his home without knowing the destination. Moses was told to confront Pharaoh with nothing but a staff. Peter was told to step out of the boat in the middle of a storm. None of it made sense, but their obedience changed history. Changed history. Imagine if they had hesitated. Imagine if they had waited for a safer time, for a more logical explanation. They would have missed their moment. And that's the danger. Delayed obedience is disobedience. If you keep waiting until everything feels right, you'll wait forever. What keeps most people from obedience is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of stepping out and falling short. But let me tell you, fear is not from God. Fear is the enemy's attempt to keep you paralyzed when God is calling you forward. That's why you have to move boldly, not timidly. Boldness doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you step out anyway. It means you choose faith over fear, trust over doubt, obedience over hesitation. I've learned in my own life that every major blessing was on the other side of obedience. There were moments when I felt unprepared, moments when I didn't see how it was going to work, moments when I questioned if I had what it takes. But the moment I said yes, the moment I stepped forward in faith, things started to shift. Not because I had all the answers, but because I trusted the one who did. And I'm telling you right now, your breakthrough is tied to your obedience. The promotion you're praying for, the vision you've been carrying, the purpose you've been searching for, it's waiting on the other side of one bold step of obedience. But here's the thing, you can't just obey when it's easy. See, you've got to obey when it's inconvenient, when it's uncomfortable, when it costs you something, because obedience will cost you. It will cost you relationships, comfort, habits, even opportunities that look good but aren't God. But what you gain on the other side, peace, purpose, fulfillment, destiny, far outweighs the cost. You've got to decide, is the temporary pain of sacrifice worth the eternal reward of obedience? And don't miss this, obedience is not a one-time act, it's a lifestyle. It's not about saying yes once, it's about saying yes every day, every time He nudges you to forgive, every time He calls you to serve, every time He whispers for you to move in a direction that doesn't make sense. And each yes builds on the last, and step by step you find yourself walking deeper into your calling. So if you want to step into your purpose, don't wait until the path is clear. Don't wait until the crowd cheers you on. Don't wait until you feel qualified. Move now. Move boldly. Move with faith that if God called you to it, He's already equipped you for it. And even if you stumble, even if you face opposition, His grace will carry you. Because bold obedience isn't about your ability, it's about your trust in His. At the end of the day, your calling is not about playing it safe. It's about walking boldly, even when the world says sit down. It's about trusting God enough to move when He says move, even if no one else understands. And if you live that way, if you choose bold obedience, you'll look back one day and realize you walked straight into the life God designed for you. Not because you knew the whole plan, but because you trusted the planner. That's the power of obedience. That's the key to walking in your calling. And that's where purpose is found, one bold step at a time.